All right, we're good to go.
Great. My name is Daniel Stafford. I'm the president of the Bar Association. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. If you could, I think you're all on mute already, except for a couple of the candidates, but just keep your microphones muted until you speak so that there's not any background noise. This year, we've expanded the field of participants a bit to include the Beacon City Court race at the request of the candidates. So we're happy to have them here, and we're going to start with them first. Mr. Johnson, you've got the floor.
Okay, well, sounds good. Can everyone hear me okay? You can hear me. Okay, excellent.
Let me chime in 1 second. We're going to have an opportunity to ask the candidates questions after they speak. And just keep in mind, we've got about 10 people that are going to be presenting. So, don't give the 1 hour version of your stump speech. But we will, if anyone has questions for the candidates, we'll have an opportunity after each of them speaks to ask those.
Okay, sounds good. Well, once again, thanks for inviting me. This is great to get to talk to you all. I'll be quick, but my name is Greg Johnston. I'm running for Beacon City Court Judge. I've been a public defender at the Legal Aid Society in New York City for 17 years. I just want to talk a little bit how I got there. I actually became interested in the law back in before 2000 when me and my wife were living in San Francisco. And this was during the first .com boom, and there was a lot of gentrification going on. The rents were increased a lot, and a lot of folks were being evicted. And San Francisco has just cause or good cause eviction, however you want to call it. And a lot of folks didn't know about the legal requirements. So me and my wife started a drop-in kind of clinic type situation at a cafe in the Mission District, so we could give them information on their options and send them the right directions if they needed legal help and they needed legal advice. So that got me interested in the law. I ended up applying to law school, and I ended up going to NYU, which was a great experience. When I was there, I became interested in criminal law, mostly because I was an intern at the Innocence Project for my time at NYU with Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld. So I was assisting in reviewing claims of actual innocence, determining if DNA could show that someone was wrongly convicted. I also took the Federal Defender Clinic my last year, which kind of solidified my interest in criminal law. That's where we partnered with a federal defender in the Eastern District and handled misdemeanors. Upon graduation, I actually went to a large commercial law firm for a year and seeing if that was interesting as well. It turns out it wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for something that would get me in the courtroom a little more. So I moved over to the Legal Aid Society. When I started there, I was briefly in the parole revocation defense unit. So I actually worked on Rikers Island defending people who were accused of violations of their parole. And that was very, very eye-opening. But shortly thereafter, I went to just a normal criminal defense division. And that's where I've been since. I'm in the Brooklyn office. We do vertical representation at Legal Aid Society. So typically at this point, obviously I represent people in Supreme Court charged with serious felonies, but if the case is reduced, I find myself in criminal court. We represent our client till the case is over. But mostly I am in Supreme Court, and it's a great job. It's very stimulating. The law is always changing, so I'm always learning new things. The bail and discovery rules changed basically the entire practice. It was like I was starting to be a public defender again, so that was really stimulating and interesting. That's kind of who I am and how I got there. So I'm just trying to keep it brief. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
If you have a question, Jen, are they able to unmute themselves, or do you have to do that?
No, they should be able to unmute themselves.
Okay. Just give it a few seconds.
You can also type a question into the chat if they'd prefer, and I can read it if that's easier for people.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Johnston. Now
Thank
we
you.
will pass the mic to Judge Timothy Pagonis.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm Judge Pagonis. I am currently the judge for the city of Beacon. I started my career in law in 1991 with the Dutchess County District Attorney's Office, where I was there for 3 years. I attained, I guess, the rank of a senior felony prosecutor, and I also specialized in DWI prosecutions. In 1994, I left the office and started working with the law firm of Pagonis and Cross as an associate. There, I specialized in criminal defense. I also did real estate and banking law. I was also a deputy town attorney for the town of Phillipstown, specializing in the zoning and planning boards. I was an associate there until 2007. In 1997, I was appointed the assistant judge, and that was an appointment by the mayor. I was the assistant judge from 97 until 99, where I ran and was elected as the city judge. During those 3 years, I was fortunate enough to learn the job, learn what needed to be done as the judge when I became it. As I said, I was elected to the judgeship in 1999. It was still a part-time position, so I'm still practicing law at the time. I got reelected to the position as a part-time judge in 2005, and in 2007, the position became a full-time position. So I stopped practicing law. At that time, I was a full-time judge. In 2011, I was reelected once again to a 10-year term as a full-time judge, and that brings me to today's date. During my time on the bench, in 2002, I started the Beacon Drug Treatment Court. This is currently the only misdemeanor drug treatment court in the county, and I have countywide jurisdiction. I've also started the Domestic Violence Court, which is the only misdemeanor court in the county doing domestic violence. It just handles Beacon cases. I've also started the Mental Health Court Connections Program, which is a program, instead of arresting people, what we try and do is a lot of these people who have been arrested or are going to be charged are in the system. So now what we do is set up a program where the police call the mental health hotline, we get them connected back into treatment as opposed to just arresting them and not dealing with their needs. In 2001, I started the Opioid Recovery Court, which is basically a fast program to get your charges dismissed. We get you into recovery, and I also have countywide jurisdiction in that. I handle criminal, civil, small claims, traffic, and landlord and tenant. So I'm the people's judge doing the people's work, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. 2021, I started the opioid court this last April, so I'd be happy to answer any questions. Anyone?
Okay, thank you, Judge Pagonis. I don't want to cut anyone off, but if you do have questions, now's the time to ask them.
Judge Pagonis, you do the family court off hours as well?
Well, we have the Raise the Age program where the city court judges have been designated as accessible magistrates. So what we do is the city of Poughkeepsie and the city of Beacon, we rotate every other month. So if there is a JO or an AO who needs to be arraigned, we do those arraignments for the family court, and then we either ship them up to the youth part or to the family court. So we do them, yes. And I do arraignments 24, I'm available 24/7. We do arraignments, unfortunately, for a lot of the town and village courts that the judges are just, are not reachable, but we do it all.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, both of you. Good luck in the upcoming race. I don't think we have Judge Watson here yet. Is that right, Jenna?
We do not. So maybe we can jump ahead
Yeah.
to our Supreme Court candidates.
Correct. Let's go next to Tom Davis.
Good afternoon, everybody. Most of you, I think, know me. I'm Tom Davis. I've been a local practitioner for just under 25 years. 28 years I've been a local practitioner. I've been a Supreme Court practitioner for just under 30. It'll be 30 years in March of next year. I'm running for the Supreme Court position. There are 5 openings in the 9th Judicial District, which is the counties of Dutchess, Putnam, Westchester, Orange, and Rockland. I think there's 2 of us on today for who are candidates for those 5 positions. As I said, I've been a Supreme Court practitioner for 30 years. Started out my career early on doing some criminal defense, but then morphed into family law, which I did for many, many years. Divorces, rather complex divorces, family law matters, child custody matters, notable appeals on a lot of those cases. And then in the last, I'd say, dozen years or so, my practice morphed into more personal injury work. I've tried cases in the Supreme Court, jury trials, argued appeals. So I've had a very varied practice in the areas that a Supreme Court judge deals with on a day-to-day basis. I've been active in the community. I was up until until I began my campaign on the executive committee of Abilities First Incorporated, a large organization that provides services to developmentally and intellectually disabled individuals. And before that, I was involved with an organization called the Down Syndrome Association in the Hudson Valley. So I think I bring to the table enough experience in the Supreme Court as a practitioner to step into the courthouse ready to start working as a Supreme Court judge and get the ball rolling. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom.
Okay.
And we miss you on the Abilities First board, by the way.
All right, thank you, Dan.
Next, Judge Richard Girton. You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, I followed your directions before, but not now, so there we are. Good afternoon. I am Rich Girton. I'm currently Middletown City Court Judge. I've been the Middletown City Court Judge the second go-round since May of 2018, full-time. I grew up in Middletown, went through Orange County Community College, took a year off, worked in Washington, D.C. with then Congressman Ben Gilman. Kind of an interesting experience for someone who hadn't gone much past the Orange County Fair in those days to see and experience Washington, D.C. Came back to New York, went to Hamilton College, and then also went to NYU Law School, as Mr. Johnston did. Graduated in 81, so basically I've been involved with the law since 81. Spent 2 years with a big international law firm, Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. Went in their Los Angeles office and then Washington, D.C. Came back home in 1983. John Bonisic, an attorney at the time, some of you may know, I saw him at locally when I was visiting mom and dad, and he said, I'd like to have an associate and attorney. Would you come back home? And I did. So I've been up in Middletown since 83, worked with him a few years, then did my own practice. Early in my career, handled family law, matrimonial law, and then as time went on, it went more and more into a general civil practice, municipal law particularly. I was the City of Middletown attorney for 25 years. Town of Waukegan, Town of Wawayanda, some other municipalities and entities such as the Thrall Library District. While I was Corporation Counsel in just before 2000, the Commissioner of Public Works, Al Fusco, retired after 25 years. So the mayor put me in as Commissioner of Public Works for a month to sign vouchers. So that's all you're going to have to do. Well, at the end of the month, we had a 2-foot snowstorm, and people were flipping out because they said, Al's gone. What are we going to do? I learned very quickly that the workers were the ones who took care of things and not the commissioner. The commissioner had to listen to them and see what they were doing. So that went well enough. They actually kept me on as Commissioner of Public Works and Corporation Counsel, both technically full-time positions, for a little over 2 years until I went on the city court bench the first time. So I think my background is pretty broad. I also teach part-time at our local community college. I've been teaching since 2006. And Judge Treatwasser doesn't remember, but way back when at some point, both my son and I went through the Order of the Arrow process while you were heading that up with Boy Scouts, and I maintained that interest in Scouts for my own sons. Was the chairman of our committee for a while, and so I've tried to stay active in our community And in my spare time, which these days, of course, isn't too much, but I love gardening and the Yankees and hiking in the area. I'm a father to 4 kids, and Ellie and I have been married 36 years. So, and I'm very comfortable being city court judge. I love being a judge. But my wife did say to me some time ago when people were asking me to run, she says, Rich, if you're asked to step up and take on more responsibilities, that's your obligation to do it. And that struck home with me, that I believe with my background, with my experience, I believe I have a good amount to offer, potentially as Supreme Court judge. And that's why I'm running. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if
Thanks.
not, I'm going to ask if I could then be excused because I have to get back to the court. I'm home right now and prepare for a 2 o'clock calendar.
Sure. You are excused, sir.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a good day.
Here. Bye. And I still don't see Judge Watson. Is that correct, Jana?
No, she's not joined us yet.
She's finishing up a family offense, an emergency family offense, and she'll be in shortly under my name.
Okay,
Who was that speaking? I'm sorry.
Tom Dietz.
Okay, great. Okay, so while we're waiting, Rachel Saunders, you are running for family court. You have the floor.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. I was raised in the Hudson Valley, and I have 20 years of experience as a public interest lawyer, representing children in family court, the mentally ill with mental hygiene legal service, and victims of domestic violence. I spent 2 years very early on in my career in Afghanistan, working with Afghan lawyers looking to build their legal system. I came home after those 2 years, and that's when I started representing kids in family court in the Bronx and Brooklyn. Most recently, I've served as the attorney in charge over at Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. I think most of you know Legal Services. We provide free civil legal services to people on issues of basic necessities, like representing victims of domestic violence and victims of crimes in family court, disability advocacy, representing people with mental illness, eviction prevention work. And so, you know, I've run all of our programs at Legal Services of the Hudson Valley in Poughkeepsie, but one of the areas that I've been very proud of is the work around family court. When I came into Legal Services 5 years ago as the attorney in charge, I had 1.5 attorneys doing that work. And we were really able to expand that work. And actually, I was able a few years ago with a partnership with Family Services to open up a second office at the partnership specific to representing people in family court who are victims of crimes. I'm an active participant in Dutchess County's coordinating committee on issues of domestic violence. And as well, I'm a trained mediator with our Dutchess County Mediation Center. I've been a participant in their restorative justice program for years now. And so, you know, I decided to make this change, and I had to take a leave of absence from Legal Services to run because I believe that my 20 years of experience working in the community, living in the Hudson Valley for all but about a decade of my life, I'm raising my 2 children here as well, will be a benefit to our family courts. And I hope to bring all of these experiences that I've had and my work around family court, not just in Dutchess County, but at Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. I had the opportunity to work with my partners in other counties. You know, we had a small group of managers, supervisors who worked together to really build and grow our family court practice throughout our counties in the Hudson Valley. Part of my job at Legal Services was to navigate the difficult cases and to work with my attorneys and train and mentor them to be advocates in the courtroom. So that's why I'm running, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I had a question emailed in. What specific types of matters within family court have you handled?
So I represented kids in family court on custody, visitation, family offense, Article 10 cases. At Legal Services, we do custody, visitation, and family offense cases. So those are the cases where, I have direct experience. I did also start out my career as a criminal defense attorney, as a public defender in the Bronx. So I have experience in the criminal realm, and I've represented kids. And so those are the areas that I specifically have worked in. And at Legal Services, we are developing more capacity around Article 10 cases. Our Westchester office actually just created a unit, and I was very involved in that because of my former experience at Children's Law Center. So those are my areas that I've been involved in.
Ms. Saunders, this is Carl Chu.
Hi.
A question for you is that the information that you gave were these hands-on cases that you represented children? Were you an attorney for children?
Yes. Yep. I was an attorney for children.
And you did this in the courthouse?
In the Bronx and Brooklyn.
All right. So then
I worked for Children's Law Center.
The other question that I have is the 20 years of experience that you said that you have in family court working with legal aid and everything. Is that through an administrative person, or were you actually in the courtroom doing this stuff?
Yep. So for 15 years, I was, well, minus the 2 years that I was in Afghanistan, I was a staff attorney. I represented clients. I represented clients with mental hygiene legal service. I represented clients as an attorney for children with Children's Law Center. I started out, as I mentioned, as a public defender in the Bronx. My decision 5 years ago, when I decided to take the job with Legal Services. Sorry, there's lots of acronyms when you've worked with institutional providers. So when I took the job 5 years ago as the attorney in charge at Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, I had been, an attorney representing clients for 13 years. And I loved that work. And it was a hard decision to, transition into that, attorney in charge job. But I really actually, I made the decision that I wanted to take my years of experience to be able to grow that office. And I was able to do that. And I also, oftentimes, if an attorney left or if we had, more cases than we had capacity for, I was taking cases as well. I second sat every trial. I worked very closely with my attorneys to prepare each and every case. I had the ultimate decision about which cases we accepted at Legal Services of the Hudson Valley. And so, I both over the years have done, that I've been with Legal Services, I've both taken cases, but I've trained and mentored. I've done CLEs for the Dutchess County Bar Association. And been very involved specifically in the domestic violence coordinating.
So, Saunders, I'm still confused as to, were you covering cases or were you actually trying? How many cases did you actually try from beginning to end versus covering or mentoring or administrating?
So in my first, like I said, 15 years of experience, I was in court doing cases. I mean, as a public defender, I was in court every day. I did, dozens of trials from beginning to end, jury trials.
Is this in the Bronx or up here again?
I started out in the Bronx. Yeah. And then, with Children's Law Center, I was a staff attorney representing kids in family court. I was in court every day doing, again, dozens of trials. I was representing clients, children in family court. And at Mental Hygiene Legal Services, I was up here. So I was in Poughkeepsie, if you recall, the psychiatric center that was in Poughkeepsie that shut down in 2012. I represented the folks in that hospital. I did the Article 81s, which was, so I was in court doing hearings every week. And at Legal Services of the Hudson Valley, I would take cases myself and I would appear on cases. But, because I had, all those years of experience in the courtroom, representing clients, doing trials, I worked with my staff to work on their capacity. And so I was training and mentoring. So, but I also was in court regularly on cases as well. So thank you.
We've got Tom Angel with his hand up.
Rachel, as you might be aware, Dutchess County recently appointed an assigned counsel administrator.
Yes.
And in almost all the criminal courts, the judges are permitting the assigned counsel administrator to appoint the attorneys who are needed pursuant to 18B where there's a conflict.
Mhm.
My question for you is, if you were elected as family court judge in Dutchess County, would you permit the assigned counsel administrator to appoint attorneys that appear in front of you when our office or the conflict defender in Dutchess County has a conflict and can't represent the party who's indigent?
I'm not familiar with all of the, ins and outs, but I come, as I just chronicled my background, in the city, in the Bronx, there was a very active 18B assignment program that I felt was very helpful. And so I think that, yes, I think it is good to have the 18B, administrator doing that work and assigning counsel. I saw the benefit of that when I was in court.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thanks very much, Ms. Saunders.
Thank you.
Jana, any word from Judge Watson? Or Tom?
I haven't heard from her. Tom, is she there with you? Tom?
It's frozen.
Oh, there we
Hi,
go.
I'm sorry. The judge was just getting off the bench. So
Okay.
just
We'll
give her a
hang on for a
second.
second. Yeah, no problem.
I have a completely unrelated question. Any idea, Jana and Dan, when we think we might be able to get back to in-person bar lunches while waiting for the judge?
I'm afraid to say truthfully at this point, because I feel like every time I say it or I plan something, then the numbers go back up and we have to pull back. So
We've scheduled them and then it just hasn't panned out.
When is Judge Treeboxer going to treat us?
well, if he's treating, then we're
Carl,
scheduling
you're the only
it
one I would
immediately.
treat. Carl, you're it. Everybody else can afford their own. You and I, we've been around a long time, Carl, right? Well, I sympathize to Jana and Dan because, one day it looks good, the next day it looks lousy. So God only knows.
I feel somewhat
I'm going to hold you to that.
because we could have
No problem, Carl.
pushed the lunch and done it over the summer. And I said, oh, we don't usually do things this summer. We'll wait for September. And then it crept back up. So the first one may be we're doing this in 2 weeks. Everybody comes sort of a thing so we can get it in.
Right.
I did just admit Judge Watson. I can't
Yes.
see if
She's here. Yes.
if she's ready.
I'm
so.
here, yes.
Judge Watson, we've had everyone go before you and Ms. Saunders just went. So you are last, but certainly not least.
I apologize for the delay.
Go right ahead. No problem.
Well, not sure what you're looking for. I am running for reelection. Is that what we're talking about here?
That's correct.
So
For those who don't know you very well, perhaps give us some background.
okay, well, I'm not sure how many people wouldn't know me. I've been here in Dutchess County most of my life. My family goes back, some of them as far back as the Revolutionary War. I believe I'm connected to this community. I was educated locally, went to law school out in St. Louis, worked for the court system out there briefly, and then came back and raised my family here. I was fortunate enough to be hired by Judge Foreman 22 years ago to work as his court attorney in family court, and was able to run for his seat when he moved to county court. During that time, I did the federal training. He was asked to do the treatment courts, both the family treatment court and the juvenile treatment court. And I was fortunate enough again to be included in the federal training that we went to do that. And since then have, with the help of Jana, actually done trainings here in Dutchess County for other attorneys so that they could be aware of the connection between domestic violence and substance abuse in the women that we've seen treated in the family treatment courts. And I've done trainings on family court in general. I've worked with the Center for Lifetime Studies, done presentations for them on family court, and done CLEs for the Bar Association as well. I feel it's important you have somebody who has experience and relationships with people in the community that handle the mental health issues and substance abuse issues that we see here in Dutchess County. There's definitely been a rise in both of those over the years. Most of what we're seeing in the juveniles has been an increase in mental health issues. And as anybody who lives in the city of Poughkeepsie certainly, or reads the paper, knows that we've had a lot of struggles with our juveniles recently. So again, built relationships with agencies here in the community over the years. One of the reasons why I want to keep my job, I love the work that I do. I think it's important that we are helping families and children. I'm also acting Supreme Court Justice, so I've been doing that for 8 years. And while I'm happy to take on the additional responsibility as necessary, I can tell you that my heart is in family court. I'd much prefer people fighting over children than over money any day. So I appreciate the opportunity to have worked in family court all these years. I can tell you we have some of the best attorneys in town working in family court. There's nobody getting rich in family court. Everybody who's working in family court is mostly there because of the same feeling. They're there because they care about kids and want to make sure that people have their rights protected and an opportunity to be represented by counsel in those proceedings. We have a great group of attorneys here in Dutchess County, and I'm privileged to work with them every day. There's never a dull moment in family court. There is nothing you see on TV that you can make up. That's what we see here in family court every day. It's interesting, challenging, emotional, but it's where I've been for 22 years. I'd like to continue out my career here. I was in private practice previously. I do think that's important when you're sitting on the bench, that you know the attorneys, that the challenges that they deal with as attorneys, and it's helpful to be able to work with them with some perspective as to what it's like to be a sole practitioner as well. Not sure what else you would want to hear from me.
Does anyone have any questions for Judge Watson?
No. So I'm sorry I missed everybody else's presentations. Sure, we have a good group of candidates this year.
Yes, indeed.
Judge, this is Carl Chu. I have a question for you. There was recently an article that was in the Poughkeepsie Journal, and it was saying as to how long it takes to prosecute cases. How has COVID affected the progress of cases, if at all?
Oh, it's definitely affected them. That's one of the reasons why I'm still late today, because it takes twice as long, if not 3 times longer, to get cases in and out of court right now. It's juggling everybody's ability to appear by phone. People are calling in from their jobs. They're not taking the time to leave their job to come to court like they would if it was in person. Instead, they're fitting us into their schedules, which don't always align with ours. It is very difficult for sure. Trials have been put on hold because I can tell you I have had 39 appeals in the 10 years I've been on the bench. I've been upheld 33 times. Those decisions that have come out have said that they rely on the judge's ability to assess the credibility of witnesses and individuals in the courtroom. Cannot do that if they're appearing on a screen in a small box or not even turning on a camera. So trying to try a case virtually, to me, is not fair to the litigants. So we've been waiting. We've started them this past spring, trying to get them in, but those cases that have been waiting for trial have not been helped by the delay. So these cases have become more complicated, more cumbersome, and definitely more difficult for the children involved. So it's been very hard for us to move forward virtually. We're doing the best that we can. We just can't always get people in. And in addition to that, again, the courtrooms were built specifically in family court to be small and more intimate so that people aren't in just observing other people's family dramas. But that's prevented us with a 50% capacity as required by the court system. We can only have 8 people in the courtroom. If 3 of them are court staff, you barely get in the clients, their attorney, and an attorney for the child. You cannot get a witness on the stand. So they are opening that up now, but it is a little bit. I think we were told we could go to 10 most recently. But it has definitely been difficult and slowed the process down. So it's unfortunate that it works that way, but we're doing the best we can. For those of you who don't know, at least in family court, we shut down 2 weeks in March last year. And other than that, we've been up and running ever since. We were appearing virtually from our homes until May, but we were carrying full calendars all through that. And in May, when we came back in person, again, we've all been here since then. So we're still hearing cases every half hour, every day. We're here in the courthouse, but it's still definitely challenging. I mean, it was challenging before when we used to hear cases every 15 minutes. And now it's harder. I can tell you, I was also just at a Family Court Judges Association conference last week with an opportunity to talk to judges from across the state. And I can tell you that some of the bigger courts are not waiting for people. If people don't call in on their call, they're dismissing their cases. The smaller counties like us, I have a good friend who's up in St. Lawrence County. She told me the same thing. She said, we call people, we try to reach out because we know these families. We know if there's, issues out there, we don't want to leave them out there without any support. So we will call people and ask them to come to court because they got a link, they just didn't respond, or they're busy and haven't called in. So instead of just dismissing cases out of hand, we try to make sure that everybody has access to the court. So we're doing more than a lot of the people in other courts are, but we try where we can to make sure people have access to us, because we recognize too, some of them have waited 2 months to get their petitions heard, just because there's just not that many hours in the day to get them all in. We're doing the best that we can. And again, I think that's a benefit to someone who's been here too, is, I mean, the case I just heard before I came in here, I've known that family for 15 years. So you know what you're dealing with and you try to help where you can. Same with the juveniles. When you have juveniles come in that you've seen on neglect and abuse cases before, you know what their family situation is, you know what their challenges are. Again, you try to help them where you can.
Great, thanks so much. Anyone else? Tom?
Judge, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Rachel Saunders. If you're elected to a new term on as family court judge, will you agree to use the assigned council administrator to appoint attorneys in your court where our office, public defender's office, the conflict defender's office has a conflict?
Not sure I understand the question. What, something different than what we're doing now?
Correct. So right now, the assigned council administrator actually appoints attorneys in most of the criminal courts in Dutchess County when there's a conflict, and the attorneys are not being appointed off the bench.
There's been a lot of discussion when public defenders were first proposed in family court, 10 years ago or more. My court was the first one that started working with the public defender's office. So we've had a lot of discussion over the years about how attorneys are assigned. I think we're very fortunate to have very good attorneys, both in the public defender's office and on the 18B panel. I think the judges have all said over the years, there's a benefit to having the judges have some say in how the attorneys are assigned, because again, we know the families, we know the history. The problems we have run into with the public defender's office is that sometimes you're not vetting your clients, and when you have someone who has been represented by the public defender's office for years that has now hooked up with another individual who has now gotten into trouble in criminal court, and the public defender's office has decided that they would now represent this other individual without being fully aware of who that other individual has been connected to. I've now had to take an attorney off from, a lot of times, a woman who's had an attorney for 4 or 5 years representing her, and now she has to start over with someone new because there's a new conflict that was created by the public defender's office taking someone she's newly involved with. So issues like that come up. We deal with them the best we can. But I think there are times when clients come in and what we hear gives us some idea that maybe there's an attorney that might be better suited to handle their case than someone else. And I think it's beneficial to be able to look at the case history. And sometimes that individual had an attorney as a child. So wouldn't it be beneficial for them to now have an attorney as an adult that they have a relationship with or had a relationship with, as opposed to giving them somebody new? Sometimes you have a woman who comes in, a young woman who's been raped, and do I want to give her a male attorney when I think that she's still suffering from some trauma? I think that it's beneficial to be able to weigh that out a little bit before making a decision as to who to assign to her. So I'm certainly willing to consider, as we did with the public defender's office, working with whatever protocol is put in place. But I also think there's a value to giving the judges some consideration when we're assigning cases to know what might work best going forward. And honestly, there are times that when you know 2 attorneys that have a difficult relationship on their own, putting those 2 attorneys on the same case can create a lot of conflict and delay that maybe wouldn't exist if I had different attorneys on the case. So again, as someone who monitors the public dollars that are used in family court, because absolutely we are always conscious that what we're doing in family court is costing taxpayers as well, that you want to make sure you're using your taxpayer dollars to the best effect as well as serving the public. So I think there's a little bit more complicated answer to that. And I think I would have to know more about the situation before I would just say I would be willing to sign off on something like that.
Okay, thank you very much, Judge Watson, and all the other candidates. We wish you all the best of luck. Janet, is there any other public service announcements we need to make?
There is not. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Great. Have a great day.
Thank
Be
you.
well, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.